Hello, I think we're live. I never know how quick it is to respond to my request to go live, but I think I'm live. And today in this wellness journal, I want to speak about careers. So it will require a little bit of background. So I'm going to take a moment to do that, okay? In case you don't know, what does wellness have to do with career, right? Like, why is she speaking about that? So I'm speaking about it because wellness is so much more than just going to the doctors, like we actually have to be attentive to how we're spending our time and what we're doing on a daily basis, who we're spending time with, the type of environment we're in, etc. I mean, maybe you're going to put it together very quickly, but it actually is way more important than you can imagine. And I want you to just, maybe you even need to like pause this video for a moment to think about it. Like, how has my career affected my health? Or how is my career affecting my health currently? And that could be a good impact or a bad impact, or possibly a neutral impact, or good and bad. But this is our chance to maybe have a little sit with that. It is one of the primary foods in the integrative healthcare model. And I'm going to that'll be interchangeable in my vocabulary to like pillar, like health pillar or wellness pillar. I'm still finding my vocabulary, I would say. And so some things will be interchangeable for me, but I sort of like the visual of a pillar. So career is one of the pillars of integral health and has a big impact on our health, I would say. So maybe a little bit about me, like some perspective, right, on like where I'm coming from. So for me, I grew up in a small town. I grew up with a single mom. She was a nurse's aide. She worked really hard during my younger years, and still, of course, into her whole career, but particularly in my younger years, she was waking up at 5 a.m., and she'd be gone until 4 p.m., driving, commuting to work, etc. Heavy lifting, working in a hospital with seniors whom are at the end of their life. There, even back then and even still now today, but there were a lot of strikes with regards to pay and safety and security within the nurses' aid care home sort of field of work. So that I remember vaguely my mom going through as a young girl. She would have to cross the picket line. I remember that, right? So this is like a chance to think about, okay, well, like what's going on even just in the greater scope of your field of work, right? And what sort of role models did you have growing up within their career? So I grew up with a lot of women in my family, and they all had sort of like alternative-y jobs. Like my mom was a nurse, but and that I would say was fairly traditional for a woman at the time, and even still today. But my grandma, she worked at a laundromat. She was the account lady for my grandpa's business, or like the admin lady for my grandpa's business. She worked in a laundromat as well, though, and before that, she worked in a nursery, growing trees. And she now says to me that a lot of people, and we hear about this, we have heard about this, actually had trouble with various cancers after working in the tree farming industry. So again, just considering the environment in which you're working in and sort of what elements you're being exposed to possibly daily. Okay, so, and then my other aunt was, dealing with chronic illness herself, and so she was, I imagine she was collecting some type of a disability pension, but she always was working. She even though, I mean, I maybe that's calling her out, but I mean, she was always doing something, right? To the extent in which she could. So she's an artist. She's a long time been an artist, and same with my grandma as well. And they lived together, and they would often go to those craft fairs and sell their creative crafts and their handicrafts. And maybe you remember the 90s, people were coming up with all kinds of country kitchen crafts. And I even remember my grandma would cut out okay, so she would cut out these planks of wood. They were, what do you call that? Like plywood. She would cut out pieces of plywood, and they would be in this shape of a lady's bum, and she would paint it, and it would be, once it was done being painted, it would be a piece of plywood with a lady's bum and her skirt coming up gardening. I can't believe I'm telling you this story, but really, I mean, that's what she would paint. And so it would be like a garden ornament, and it would look as though someone was in the garden bending over their garden. But anyways, maybe you also lived in a town where these country crafts also just had an influx in during the 90s. Okay, I digress. My uncle was an actor and also an artist, worked in the arts, and then that led him to then building sets, and I think working in various different industries within the film world. So all to say is that there's like little seeds being planted when we're young, and how do we even decide what to do when we get older? Like, how does that come to be in our minds of what we might be able to do? So growing up, my mom at some point got remarried to my stepfather. He is a salesman, and he always said that I would be a great salesman, or woman, salesperson. But and at some point I even visited that in my career. So we'll get to that in my story. Anyways, he was a salesman, and I always thought that was really cool. He had a work car, and he got to go out for work lunches, and he wore a suit to work. And of course, he came in and lent support to my family, right? Financial support, and that made our family unit stronger financially. And I was really grateful to him at the time to have changed that in our life. Previously to that, I was, my sister and I were living with our single mom, and she did a wonderful job. Frankly, I don't know how she did it, but she did do it. And later on, she had the help of my stepfather, and that was cool, right? That was a change in our life, and we before and leading up to that, maybe we didn't see that coming. Maybe we didn't know that change would happen. So, and that led to some changes in my mom's career as well. My mom at some point retired from nursing and working with the elderly, and she actually went back to school to then work with like children, like young children. So like, I think between the ages of like 3 and 5. So I don't think she ever imagined that, right? I mean, so all to say is like that there's a lot out there for us to choose from, and where do we get this sort of like imagination from, and this like this confidence to say I can do that and I can't do that, or I'm good at this and I'm not good at that. Like, where do we get off? Who's telling us that? And is it serving us? So okay, so carrying on. So that was like my childhood, and then So I was straight out of Dodge when I could. So it was, I think I graduated high school at like 17, a little bit early. It was just because my birthday is in November. It wasn't because I was a smarty pants or anything like that. Not at all. I wouldn't say that I had great grades. In school, I struggled in school a lot, and and I didn't know what I would do after school. Like I knew that if I wanted to stay at my parents' place, I would need to either pay rent or be in school. And I think when I first left home, well, I know that yeah, okay. So I went to Vancouver right away. It's the biggest city in my province. Maybe you've heard of it, depending on where you're from. But I moved to Vancouver right away. I was 18 years old. I had a part-time job probably or something. And I think I was enrolled in design school at the time. So I thought to be an interior designer. Again, I don't know where I got this idea from. I mean, obviously, like as a child, I'd never really interior designed before, right? Like I remember I asked my dad to paint my walls blue, and we put stars up near the ceiling, like the banner, the top banner. And I don't know why, but I remember crying afterwards. Maybe I didn't like the color, or maybe I wasn't happy with my choice or something. Anyways, look, I don't know where I got the idea from, but I am a creative person, and I guess I thought that that was right for me at the time. So I went off to the big city and I enrolled in a rather expensive art program, and thought I was going to be an interior designer. And I loved it. I actually did really enjoy the schooling, and I wouldn't say I did good at school because, again, I had this part or probably full-time job at the time, or at least that's what it worked its way into in order to be able to afford living in the city on my own as a young person. I didn't have any help from my parents to do that. I had a student loan, but the student loan went to paying for the program. So it's not like I was really left with any money afterwards. And I didn't come from a family with money. So it's not even really like I had someone helping me with my rent or something. I mean, I could, if I ran into trouble, I could always go back to my parents' place to live, but they weren't going to give me money to figure it out. So it was me who had to figure it out. So in any case, I worked in a cafe in the service industry while I was going to interior design school. And it's no surprise I did not finish interior design school, and I am not an interior designer. I think I went for about a year and a half, maybe only a year. I wasn't getting the grades that I was wanting to get in order to pay that much for school. So I decided that it was no longer right for me to carry on. And from that, I ended up being about like $20,000 in debt from like that 1 year of school. Right? Like why do we do that to ourselves? Like where do we get off, right? Like how is that our best choice at 18 years old? Our best and only sometimes choice at 18 years old. We really are not offered much else, at least at the time. I really did not understand what choices I had available to me. I'd had previous jobs. I'd worked again at McDonald's and at a gas station, and as you do, right? And but in any case, when I lived in the city, I worked in a cafe, and went to this school. And when I came to the conclusion that the program wasn't for me, or it wasn't working out for me, I think that I think that I decided that I would go to real estate school at some point, that I would get my real estate certificate. So maybe I had thought in my mind that I would go in that industry and discover interior design via that route. So I signed up for real estate school, and it was like a distance program, and you were just getting certified from the local university. That's how it worked in my province. I don't know how it works where you live. Oh, so much math. Oh, so much law. I was all alone, right? I mean, I was doing the course out of a book, right? And well, you know, my salesman dad said I'd make a great salesperson. I really don't know how I was going to make that happen if I couldn't get through the course. So I additionally had paid for that course, also not super cheap. I would say like if I'd passed, maybe like it was reasonable. Like if I completed it, okay, yeah, not that big of an investment into your career. But if you're not sure what you want to do, it doesn't seem like a very good use of money, right? Especially when you don't have much and you're rather young. So anyways, I one day was walking to my cafe job, and like a car bumped into me, and I was knocked to the ground, and then they took off or whatever, you know, long story short. And from this, I managed to get a little bit of money in my pocket. I wasn't terribly injured, so let's not make that part of my story too much. It was just that I ended up getting a bit of money, about $3,000, I remember. So really not much. And then, and not to mention, you know, I had this now $20,000 debt over here in the corner, and I was feeling pretty lost at this stage. I was probably like maybe 20 at this stage, maybe just about like just around 19 or 20. So well, I had 3 grand suddenly, and I wasn't feeling very grounded in what I was choosing to do with my life. So I thought I'd go traveling. And the rest is history, right? I traveled for on and off for 15 years, working in the travel industry, working in the tourist industry, and in the service industry. I didn't know at all what I was doing with that part of my life. And it really didn't matter if I'm to be honest with you, like I just thought that I would cross that bridge at some point. And I was really happy to just have the freedom that those kinds of jobs gave me. And while I wasn't earning like a huge amount of money, I was able to support myself. And believe it or not, I was able to pay off my student loan, which is like shocking. But I managed somehow. I got to travel lots of countries, and I would say I definitely identified myself as a traveler at the time. I continued working in that industry into my 30s, and I in my mid 20s I met my partner, which kind of shifted sort of like that part of my life slowly, but not right away. So yeah, I continued to work in that industry into my 30s. You know, again, it's not a very high paying industry, but I don't have children and I didn't have any debt. So yeah, cool, right? A chapter of my life that I got to explore without a super amount of consequence, really. I mean, it's just how that time of my life went. Other people might have been in university at that time. Other people might have been raising their young children at that time, traveling as well, along with me, maybe similarly to me, or getting some training certificates, or, you know, starting their career more in an apprentice style. But in any case, it was really a time for discovery, you know, your 20s and your early 30s. Not everyone uses it for a time for discovery. Some people slip themselves right into their career and just maintained that position for that time of their life. Anyways, different strokes for different folks, right? So at some point, my career started to enter into my being. I don't know how it happened. So I was volunteering at a yoga studio. I was going there every week to clean and in exchange for yoga classes. And meanwhile, I was managing a hostel in Squamish in Vancouver while my partner was back in France in law school. And I was cleaning houses, and I was also volunteering to tutor English, and I was also working for a friend. So like, I'm not shy of work. Like I I always had work coming in. I have a lot of soft skills, and I'm humble. Like it wasn't like a picky time, and I did what felt right. And what helped me to save money and what helped me to continue traveling. In any case, I was volunteering at this yoga studio, and I was just falling in love with yoga and with that environment. And 3 years into volunteering at that yoga studio, I saw the poster for yoga teacher training, and the owner of the studio thought I would be a good yoga teacher. I didn't dare dream that big at the time, and like admired all of my yoga teachers and just thought they were so cool, and like that I could never, right? And that I was just going to yoga teacher training just to deepen my practice. And I was going to become a yoga teacher, and now I am a yoga teacher, and that's so neat. And I love teaching yoga, and I didn't know I would be here. I didn't know, and I still sometimes feel like an imposter, but the more and more I get to know myself and why I'm here, the more and more I feel authentic in my choice to be a yoga teacher, and I can see why it's all worked out this way. So I came back from yoga teacher training, and I got diagnosed with chronic illness, like lame. So now I'm a yoga teacher, but I have invisible illness and feel like shit all the time. And I really don't know what I'm going to do with myself anyways, because I have to, well, I don't have to, but again, I chose to move to France to be with my partner, whom was studying to be a lawyer. And I did learn this only partway into him studying, is that, and I know you guys are gonna be like, Emily, duh, like, come on. But I didn't realize that when you study law, you only get to be a lawyer in one country. So I was devastated to find out that my boyfriend could no longer be my travel buddy, and that I would no longer really have that same relationship to travel as I once did. Not only because it was like sort of coming to a point in my life where I wanted to settle down, but also because of my illness and the symptoms that I was dealing with. And now, just evolving to that stage in my life that I didn't really want to travel anymore as much. I noticed I didn't have as much in common with the people that were traveling. And at that time that I was volunteering at the yoga studio, I wanted to own a hostel. Like for many years during my travel times, just as a traveler, you just envision yourself. One of the things that you might envision yourself doing is opening up a B&B or opening up a hostel or whatever it might be, So for me, it was opening up a hostel. And maybe for a lot of you, you have this dream in the back of your mind that you're going to open up your own B&B. And maybe that's what you end up doing. Whatever dream you have in the back of your head may or may not end up being your dream in reality. But okay, so I wanted to open up a hostel, but I became a yoga teacher. And then of course, I moved to France and COVID happened. That's not a huge part of this story, so I won't go too much into it, but basically I could no longer find a job in a studio because I lived in France and didn't speak very good French, and still don't speak very good French. And also all the studios were closed because of COVID. Right, so you get it. So yoga teachers were starting to go online, and I was like, well, I guess that's what I'll do. I had a job in a hostel in France during COVID time. It was like semi-closed, but semi-opened for long-term guests. And I was teaching English online, as I had done for many years on and off while I was traveling, because it was one of those jobs that you could get while traveling. And so I was doing that online, and I just figured, well, I guess I could teach yoga online. And so I just put out a post, and my very first yoga student is still one of my yoga students. She's been a private yoga student of mine now for 3 years. And like, I'm so grateful for her. I'm gonna cry just thinking about that. Because that was like one of the first steps, right, to me being me, like in who I am in this moment. And so anyways, so I started teaching yoga online, and even in the community in France, I started practicing more French and getting better at teaching yoga and getting better at speaking French. I was teaching at community centers, parks, physiotherapist centers, and I was just renting the space. I was just playing by ear, like I don't know what I was doing, right? Like I was just doing it. So it's teaching yoga and teaching English at the same time, and I was kind of like juggling these two jobs. But obviously I was really passionate about yoga, and I wanted to ditch the English teaching and just do full-time yoga, which I pretty much do now. I now have my own online yoga business and in-person yoga business. I wouldn't say that it's like fully established, like that I would like to do one or the other. I just say that it works for me to do both as an Anglophone person living in France. I've just moved recently a few months ago, and so I actually have my first official yoga class tomorrow evening here in the town that I live in. So that's pretty fun. I'm still teaching a little bit of English. I have some students here in France and a couple out in China that I teach online. And this morning I just got a phone call to teach someone actually in my community. So she'll come around to my house. And it was like, I got that phone call only about a half an hour after I said that I was going to let go of one of my online English students. And well, the criteria of the type of English they're wanting to learn just doesn't really suit my style of teaching. So it's time to sort of like help them find a teacher that is more appropriate for their type of learning that they're looking for. So I digress. You've just heard like every possible job under the sun, maybe, or at least a good chunk of jobs. I mean, literally, I was selling muffins on the beach in Costa Rica. So I've been around the block, and I just want to say that I am absolutely sure that if you are unhappy in your job, that you can find a job that can bring you happiness. And my yoga teaching career has now brought me to this wellness coaching chapter of my career, and I just feel so excited to be able to do this as a job. I know that I have a lot to learn. Like, it's intimidating making this video. I've got notes in front of me, and yet I still feel like I'm rambling or like I'm speaking too quickly. I'm feeling like I don't belong, or like there's nothing that I could possibly have to offer you, but that's not true. I do have things to offer, and I will learn how to curate them as I go along, and I will get better and better at it. And my confidence will grow, and my skills will be honed, and I will be successful. And in the difficult moments of growing my own business in a foreign country, I'm not going to be afraid, and I'm not going to be told that I can't do it. So with that being said, what do you want to do in your career? And maybe you're already doing it. Let's be clear. This is not me telling you that to find happiness in your career, is that you need to change it. Like maybe you're already happy in your career. And if you are, super, stop watching this video and go do something better with your time. Like simple as that, right? If you're already happy in your career, like maybe you don't need this chat. But if you're going through a career shift or hoping to go through a career shift, then maybe this chat is useful to you. I want to present my slides that I made for you today. Yeah, cool. Look at that. What a beautiful little piece of artwork. So I love incorporating art into these workbooks because they just sort of help to lighten the experience, right? And offer inspiration. They also take a really long time to find the right vibe that I'm going for. So I hope that you appreciate this beautiful picture that I managed to find. So career, right? Never work a day in your life. Yeah, right. Let's go to the next slide. So this is a workbook, by the way, and you can have it. It's my gift to you. And we'll go through the workbook. I'll be creating the workbook weekly, or every time we sit down to a wellness journal with regards to career, because there's other pillars, and I'm just going to bounce around from pillar to pillar, growing the workbook each week. So this is just the first installment of the career workbook. And I didn't even know where to begin with what sort of to put in the workbook for career, because, to each their own, right? Like, I don't know how to advise someone in their career. I'm not a career advisor. I don't know you as a person, what your skills are, what your financial obligations are, what your abilities are, and whether or not you even want to have a career or a job. Maybe it's not something that you're feeling able to do. There are many people in the chronically ill community that have possibly had to let go of this part of their life to a certain extent, right? And we can talk about that. That's not lost on me. For someone that works from home, like, and teaches yoga, like, often I'm teaching yoga in my pajamas and don't want to get out of bed, and find it very difficult to pursue a career in general, because I just have to look after myself, and that is a full-time job in itself. So please know that, like, I am fully understanding that careers are going to be on a spectrum, and it may or may not be a full-time career. It may or may not be your income that supports you and your family. It may or may not be what you imagined. And at some point, you may need to come to terms with letting that go and coming up with a different way to fulfill this area of your life. Okay? So, reality, right? The big reality check is we all got to kind of have a job of some kind or an income of some kind. And what are our options under the circumstances in which we live in? And those circumstances changing, right? So I just threw out some words, and I'll create chapters within the workbook to go along with them. So today we're going to do autonomy, but to go down the list, we have autonomy, desire, compromise, boundaries, skills, environment, style, circumstances, growth, and patience. And this list may grow, and I will try to keep it relevant and on point to finding the right career for you. or to reconciling that part of your life if you don't feel it's possible. But I have no choice. Yeah, I get it. Okay. But you do to some extent. And also, if you would like to explore your choices, you can do that. And you might feel as though you have no choice now. That might change with some exploration. So if you're feeling stuck or feeling unsure if the career choice that you've chosen is right for you, your job, your career, your workplace, however you want to call it, your gig, whatever it is, how do you spend your time? How do you bring home money? This is like basically it in a nutshell, right? And ultimately you do have choice. I realize you might not have all of the choices, but you do have some choice. And even if you cannot get out of your current choice, can you choose to be happy with that choice, or at the very least content in your current choice if you feel as though you cannot choose anything else? So I took this quote. It's from an Eckhart Tolle book. I think it's, I want to say The Power of Now. I'll like correct myself if I'm wrong, I guess, in the comments or something. But if uncertainty is unacceptable to you, it turns into fear. If it is perfectly acceptable, it turns into increased aliveness, alertness, and creativity. So there's going to be some fear involved, and maybe even this conversation to you is stirring up some fear and worry that if you were to change your job, you would have to change your lifestyle, or that there would be consequences to your income or to your job security or your pension or whatever it might be. I know. I'm like 38 years old and I live in a foreign country and I work for myself. Like, I know it's scary, but like maybe there are more choices than first meets the eye. So get alive, get alert, get creative, have a word with your inner child about this. Like, why did you think you could do all of those things as a young person, right? And now as an adult, you think you can do nothing but the thing you already do. Okay, so I thought this picture was so cute. You see how the art makes it so fun? So this beaver's like shopping for his next tree to munch on, and he has all these choices, and like he just gets to choose. And one might taste better than the other. One might be harder than the other. Bigger, take longer, whatever it might be, not as fruitful. But at the end of the day, he still does have choices. And I just want you to know that within your career, you have choices, even if it is just simply your attitude and how you show up in your job. So I've written down some questions here. I invite you to explore these questions, and I'm going to give you some tips from my notes when it comes time to letting go of fear and just getting curious about your career choices and how you got here. So please feel free to sit with these questions after the video, or pause this video, or listen to me in my notes, and maybe that'll turn the wheel a little bit more for you. So if you're feeling stuck or lost or whatever, take a step back. Why do you even feel this way? Like, why do you feel stuck in your job? Like, why don't you like your job? And do you think that there are things that you could like about it? And how could you shine more of a light on that? So take a step back, do some soul searching. What is lacking in your career? Are you not earning enough? Is it not in an environment that suits you? Are you not able to work in this environment anymore because you're ill and it's too difficult for you? And that could be anything. That doesn't need to be a physical pain. I remember one time I had this terrible brain fog and I sent out the wrong email to the wrong person and I got a warning at work about it. And I was bummed. And looking back now, I know that was brain fog. Like, I know I'd never made a mistake like that before. And it was right at the time of being diagnosed with Hashimoto's. And I just, yeah, I no longer felt like I had the full presence at work, and that, you know, made it so that it was no longer right for me at that job. I mean, it's not like I was fired. I was just given a warning, but still, I felt terrible, and I was being reprimanded, and this was like due to a symptom, and it was an error, and I didn't know how to manage those symptoms at the time so that I could do the correct job. So, you know, do my work correctly. So next tip is get clear in your values. So what are your values and do they align with your job? And if they don't, how does that sit with you? Open up. So what, you know, think about yourself and your possibilities. Open up your mind, start to get creative. What skills do you have? What can you bring to the table? Which skills can transfer over to another job, right? So like, I didn't finish university, so I wouldn't say I have any formal skills, but informal skills coming out my butt. Like, they're everywhere. Would they look good on a resume? Probably not. I would have to work that out somehow. But how can your skills transfer over? Okay, what would you like your life to look like? So, yeah, guys, like, are you not a morning person? Do you not want to get up at 6 a.m. anymore? Is that like ruining your life? Don't do it then, okay? Just don't do it. Find another job. I don't know. Find another shift within your job. Speak to your boss. Figure it out, right? Like, if that's not working for you anymore, you gotta take a step back and figure that out. And that could be anything, right? Like, I despise the idea of commuting. It irks me almost. So I know that a job that involves a long commute would not work for me. And so I just know that that wouldn't be right for me. What is right for you? What do you want your day-to-day life to look like? How do you want to spend your days? Ooh, that was my notes paper. I was going to like put it up, but then I blocked my camera. So yeah, so how do you want to spend your days? And this one's a good one. This next tip I thought was like maybe the best one of them all. And I even reworded it, and it was redefining failure. And then I worded it as redefining success. So, you know, I always like really was like internalizing this failure sense with not finishing university, with not even attending university ever, right? I went to an arts college and then I took like a distance learning program to become a real estate agent. And I've since gone to yoga teaching school and taken a few of those training programs, right? Like, I'm obviously a trained 500-hour hatha yoga teacher, but I've also taken yin yoga teacher training and other styles of yoga. And now I'm in wellness coaching. So like, it doesn't matter if I have some fancy master's degree hanging on my wall. It's not, again, it comes back to my values, right? It's not what I value. And I really struggled with this. Like, for sure, I would say that I still struggle with this even now. And this chat's helping with that. You know, it's helping me to sort of validate my journey. And I know that that's not the end all be all. Not everybody needs to go to university. to have a successful career and to be successful in their life. And I think we're accepting that more and more. And if that speaks to you, you have choice. You don't have to go to university. Odds are you'll need some training in order to do certain jobs, probably most jobs, whether that be on-the-job training or classroom training. But it doesn't have to be a university degree necessarily. Some jobs do require those, and if you want those jobs, yeah, you're going to have to go to school. So too bad for you if you don't want to, right? If you don't have the money to pay for it or whatever, right? If you need to pay for an expensive school and get a degree, we can talk about that in the pillar of education at another time. But redefining failure and redefining success. So I am, relatively like middle-ish aged, and I'm restarting again from scratch in my living room while I speak to my computer, to you. And that's it. Like, this could look like mega failure to someone, but to me, I just got the award for like Employee of the Month again, if you can believe it. So, okay, moving on. Support system. Who is going to support you through this possible change? Could it be, surprisingly, your current boss? What reception would you get if you went into your boss's office and told your boss that you wanted to change positions, that you wanted to work from home twice a week because your kid got off school at that time, or because you don't want to drive to work as much anymore and spend that much on gas, or that you now want to work part-time so that you can explore your hobby and see if you can also sell plywood garden butts like my grandma did. So yeah, who's going to support you through this huge change in your life that you might be putting into place? And who's going to, on the other hand, support you to stay at your job, even if it isn't your dream? Who's going to help you reconcile that? Who is going to be your support system to say, yeah, you should stay home, and maybe it's okay for you to go on disability pension? Like, maybe we need that support system. I know, as someone who is chronically ill, if I was too ill to go to work, I would want someone to say to me, you don't have to, and you can still be successful, and you can take this time for yourself. And maybe later you'll come to a stage in your life when you can pick up a new career if you take this rest. So who's going to support you in your career choices, whether it be ending a career, starting a career, or deciding that you cannot have one at all at this stage in your life? In that same vein, I also have putting yourself out there. So if you don't feel as though you have a support system right now, who could support you? Is there an association in your community? Is there a group on Facebook? Is there someone who has gone through something that you're going through that could lend some advice and wisdom? So I got this list, from various sort of sources on the internet, and this next one I really liked. I think I'm going to look more into it, but it's called Planned Serendipity. And basically how they put it was like, you try something new and you see what happens, and maybe what happens is like your destiny or something. Because when I think about my planned serendipity, I of becoming a yoga teacher. I don't think that at the time I knew that that's what was happening, but now that I look back at it, before I became like the yoga teacher, I was in 3 years of training for it as a volunteer at the yoga studio. So if you are thinking like, I might want to change careers, but I don't know, why not go and make a phone call to that plumber guy that came around to your house last week, and you're like, I think I want to plumb. I think I want to be an electrician. I think I want to be a truck driver. I think I want to be a nurse. I think I want to be a dog walker. I think I want to sell my clothing online. I think I would like to pursue being an artist. I think I want to go back to school to be an engineer. Like, just, I want to be a singer, or whatever it is like that you want to do with yourself. Obviously, some things will not be realistic and may or may not work out as a career for you, but can you try, and can you just see, and can you just have a conversation with someone to have a better idea of if it's even what you really want to do anyways? It might not even be. And like, you can just discover more about yourself through this process. Oh, and I put down LinkedIn. It was like just one of my notes. So if also you could go on LinkedIn. If you don't know what LinkedIn is, you can look on the internet or ask me. I think I have a profile on LinkedIn, but it's not really, I don't want to like, so no, not yet on me, for me, but it does exist, and it might be really helpful depending on your job type. So time for inspiration. This is it. This is time for inspiration. You are your inspiration. Go and get inspired. Ask your colleagues what they think you are good at. Ask your boss why they hired you. Ask your boss what they like about their job. Get inspired, get curious. Leave no rock unturned. You might find what you're looking for under that rock. Okay. And last but not least, micro habits. Nothing's going to change if you don't. And I'm certainly not saying anything needs to change overnight. Choosing your career is huge, right? It's like a lifelong journey, and it can change over the course of your life. But it's only going to sort of change if we make those small changes. And it can be done with little micro habits. And when I was thinking about these micro habits, I was thinking about the person that is pretty happy in their career and is feeling good in their career and actually doesn't want to change it. And so the micro habit might be waking up earlier to get to work on time. Then you might like your job more if you're at work on time. Maybe you need to decorate your desk. Maybe you need to go and get a new work outfit, or get a yoga ball to sit on instead of a chair. I don't know what it is, but are there little micro changes or micro habits that you could put into your current position if you were to like your position or feel as though you can't change your position? What are those micro changes that could be made in order to make your job a more pleasant place to be at? And then my last, very, very last note was update your resume, which sounds like my worst nightmare, given all the jobs that I've had, and that I don't think that they would necessarily translate well on paper. But maybe yours would. And if you updated your resume, you might start to realize how valuable you are as an employee. And then you might think that you could have the job of your dreams. And you also might realize that you already have the job of your dreams and that you just don't know it. So that's it, guys. This part of the book, believe it or not, the workbook, was autonomy. So just basically you have autonomy in choice. I think that's my last slide. sit with these questions that I've written down here. I'll read a few or maybe all to you. Are you happy with your current career choice? Why are my first sentences always so shit? I need an editor. Okay, what led you into this field in the first place? So like what brought you here in the first place? And fun, maybe, right? And like, oh, like I don't even know how I got here in the first place, right? Maybe that kind of thing. If you could choose again, what would you choose? So like really honestly, like use your imagination, right? Like circus, veterinarian, astronaut, right? So maybe not that outlandish, but maybe something, right? And are you in love with your career, but the workplace environment is not right for you? So maybe you don't need to change at all. Maybe you just need to like change the attitude that you're going to work with, or maybe you need to sit next to someone else at work, or change your department, or change the company that you work for, or the location of the business. Like maybe there's multiple locations and maybe you just need to change the location. You know, like maybe it's not all or nothing. Maybe it's just like all or something. So would you like to switch to a different position in your field of work? So maybe you're like, man, why am I doing this job when I could be doing that job over there? And I see that guy working every day and that looks fun. So yeah, maybe you're in the right place at the right time, and maybe you can switch over to another duty within your office or within your job. And maybe there's even some in-office training that you could do, and maybe they would pay for it. So like, don't rule that out, you know, like maybe you don't have to reinvent the wheel just to be happy at work. Maybe you can just make a small change to the department that you're working in. Do you feel that you have autonomy in your workplace? Are you feeling totally trapped? Or do you feel like you have some autonomy, and what is making you feel trapped in your workplace? And can you work that out somehow? Can we work that out together somehow? Right? Like that's what like more one-on-one coaching would go into. But we can, if there's things in your way that are in your way that you could possibly get out of your way, or a different way of looking at it, we can sit and try that out together. That's it, guys. I hope you have a great day. I know that this is a day late, but I'll tell you why. And I'll tell you what inspired me to speak about career today. And it was, as a self-employed person, I don't have a lot of work structure, but I'm starting to make work structure for myself, set boundaries, etc. And yesterday, I did not get around to making this video by 6 p.m. And 6 p.m. I am finishing work now. So it was the first thing on my list to do today, and I'm going to get more and more diligent during my working hours to be doing work. And that means that these should be on time, but will not always be on time. And that's okay. And it's also okay for you. That's it, guys. I hope that you're enjoying this new style of wellness journal, and that you will benefit from the workbook that goes along with it. I'm going to put it like down in the comment area, and I hope that you have a good day at work. Bye.